in a coffee shop in a city, which is every coffee shop in every city on a day, which is every day. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 16th episode of Barista Unfiltered, a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. They tell us what's brewing in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unfiltered podcast. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
We're your hosts, and we're glad that you've joined us again. Today, our guest is Angela Matute. She is a barista who works at Starbucks in San Francisco, California. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us. Angela is a good friend of Austin's. They go way back. So Austin's going to take over the interview from here.
Angela, first, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to come and talk to us today. I know you're really busy, and it's just great to be able to catch up.
Yeah.
The first question I have is, like when we started working together, you were obviously really trained and knew what you were doing around the bar. So I was curious how you got your start, where you first trained in coffee.
So actually my first job ever once I graduated from high school was actually working at a licensed store for Starbucks. I started in this little kiosk at Savory at 16 and Bertrell in San Francisco. And at first it was just something so I could do throughout the summer while I took the semester off to go into college. And then after that, I ended up staying 2 years and transitioned to an actual corporate Starbucks. And I stayed there about an additional year. And then I decided that even though I liked the atmosphere, I wanted to work on independent stores because my future goal was to always own a coffee shop. And so I was like, I'm never going to get the full experience of like the coffee culture diversity of owning my own store until I kind of go away and do it from a non-corporate kind of coffee shop. So then I got a job at what was called It's a Grind, and then stayed a couple of months there until they unfortunately closed down. And then I went to Spikes, and I think I was there for almost 2 years. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 years. Yeah.
And I ended up, unfortunately, going on a few months away because I wanted to focus a little bit more on like what I was learning in education. So I was right now my major has changed from then, but it was focused more on like women and gender studies, and I wanted to help like women who've been in crisis. And at this point, I've kind of made it in a little bit more broad scale and decided to go in psychology, so then I can master in it and actually like apply that and have more opportunities in other places. And then I ended up going back to Starbucks just so I can get it was a different type of experience that was offered to me on the table.
And so are you still studying in school right now?
At the moment, yes, I am. I'm transferring hopefully in the next semester to finish my bachelor's degree.
Oh, where are you planning on transferring to?
San Francisco State.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's great.
I have a question about the Starbucks. You said you started at a licensed store and there's a difference between a licensed store and a corporate store?
Yes. So a licensed store is kind of more like they have the products and everything. So we still kind of have the standards that would be like at a regular Starbucks. But the difference is that they are really owned by the company you get hired by. So for me, for instance, was Safeway. So even though they wanted us to be like, well, we're Starbucks, so we'll uphold what they say, it was really more like at the end of the day, we were upholding what Safeway wanted in the balance because we were employed by them.
Is that correct? Is it correct that you can't get tips if you're working at the Safeway Starbucks?
Back then, I believe it was no tips. At this point, I think they updated that, and I think they do get tips now.
Okay. So you primarily see these licensed stores in grocery stores and in Target.
Yes.
Right. But when you see a Starbucks that's like downtown in a hotel, is that a legit Starbucks that is corporate, or is it a licensed store?
So usually they'll have like a sign that says that they're actually licensed and they won't take rewards, like what we have as the reward program. Otherwise, there's some locations like that I know in the city, or like kind of like the Nico Hotel or the Whitcomb Hotel, and they do actually have Starbucks in there, but they're actually owned by Starbucks.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I go skiing up at Copper Mountain in Colorado, and they have I guess it's a licensed store because my rewards don't work there, and they're always apologizing about it. And I'm like, it's no big deal. But they say that people full on throw tantrums because people don't understand the difference between licensed stores and corporate stores, and they get mad if they can't use their rewards.
Yes.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, I had a couple of, like, when I worked at Safeway, it was a little bit, it was wild. I seen it all there. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people get mad. And it's funny because going from a license to actually a corporate one, the atmosphere is really different. Like the customers are different. I did, like, obviously at the location for Portrayal, I had my own like regulars at the same, but at a corporate, they're really much like they're different. It's like
they're just random people, right?
Yeah,
just people who happen to be shopping.
Yeah.
So like when I was working with you, I already noticed that you had like a lot of curiosity about coffee, and you seem to be like one of those people that you work with who cares more about it than just like a part-time job that you're just there like filling your time with. And I was wondering, like, in your case, did you kind of go into the coffee world with like already like wanting to know more about coffee, or is it something that you got the job and then that whole world sort of opened up to you and you got interested?
Honestly, I was not a coffee drinker when I started. It wasn't a little bit until like afterwards where I started learning about like different roasts, and I kind of, because at first I was like, oh, it's just coffee. Like, it didn't taste different to me. But then once I started like actually opening my eyes up to it, I was like, oh, I get it. Like blonde, different aromas. Like I get the smoothness, the chestnut, like smoke. Cause like I used to look at the people, I'm like, how do you get like a campfire s'mores in that, like drinking just that dark? I'm like, and I was so confused. And then after a while, I started getting more into it. And then now I'm just like, I love going to independent coffee shops around me, like 4 Barrel, and then just drinking just straight coffee now. Cause it's, I don't know, it's like something so intriguing about knowing more about the process that goes into a coffee bean when it comes to like stores.
Have you ever been able to go watch people like watch the beans get roasted or anything like that?
Yeah, I believe when I was at Spike's, I remember I went on a vacation for a couple of days, and for my birthday I went to Seattle, and then I had the opportunity to look at not only like independent roasteries but also like the big like Starbucks Reserve that everybody talks about, and they like actually show you how they roast them there, and then they like talk to you about like every single one has like different levels of what they need to go through, so they get those distinct flavors out.
Oh, that's cool. So you had somebody that was like sort of experienced, that was willing to give you like the basics of, what flavor profiles are and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And in your job now, are you teaching that to other people?
So yeah, so the little bit what I kind of do now is like I kind of elevate the coffee culture at my store. So I'm kind of one of the coffee leads. We used to have this really big program. They used to be like, you get a black special apron that says like you're a coffee master. And the program back then used to be that I usually would have to do it independently. So I trained about 6 months, read this whole book about every single processing, what a coffee tree plant gets from seed all the way to a tree, and then all the different places that it comes from. And then like you had this whole presentation of being like, this is the coffee that I chose that kind of represents me, and this is my story about it, and I'm saying it through like a coffee. And then when I got certified and then transferred for one store to the other, I got the opportunity there, to the store location that I am now, to kind of go with a whole bunch of like, it was about maybe 13 baristas that I got to teach and go in depth about coffee. And at the end, they all presented projects, and I got to get like other district managers involved, and they got to go around and like ask them questions about what they learned and say a little bit about them and just through coffee. So it's a little bit kind of intriguing to me because I just love to learn about coffee. So any way I can like kind of get that out of somebody else, I'm like, well.
And which one did you choose?
For me, at the time, I get like a Guatemalan roast, and then what I did was pair it with the Guatemalan dish, and it was like it's what's called like a mixta. So in Guatemala, you get like a tortilla, and then you would get like a pork sausage and put it in the tortilla with some ketchup and then some avocado and a little bit of mayo. And I paired that with coffee because a lot of people, when they think of coffee, they think about like pies, like things that are sweet. They never think about it as like you can go so far with it. So you can pair it with cheese, you can pair it with like meats, and it actually goes really well. So I did that kind of because I wanted to explore more of the savory side, and because personally it reminded me of back home and where I come from, my roots, and it kind of gets me more like proud of who I am and every aspect of my life.
And you are from Guatemala originally, correct?
Yes. Well,
do you have like
was born there. I was born here, but
but your family roots are Guatemalan.
Yes.
Do you have like a favorite kind of coffee that comes from Guatemala? Is there like a favorite region that you have or something like that?
No, I just drink Guatemalan coffee because it's more like it's more smooth, and then it has like fruity taste to it, like a fruit taste to it at the end. So
we have a Guatemalan dark roast that we do at Spike's. It's like probably my favorite dark roast that we have there.
Yeah, it used to be one of my favorites when we used to brew it.
So what is the name of your position that you hold right now? Is there like
Right now, I am a shift supervisor, but I'm training to hopefully be an assistant store manager. So I'm doing a lot of extra stuff on my store to try to get to that extra step of where I need to go.
And then this is all stuff that you have to do like on your own time?
No, we fortunately we get paid for it. But then they did like implement like a class recently that I took that was just like they go over to you with like scheduling is a little bit more in depth on inventory and kind of managing like what you would be when you're at that level.
And did they send you to somewhere else, like to some other sort of regional office to do this, or did they come to your store?
They send you to like a regional office in the city.
Oh, cool.
So do you have to be a coffee master to be a manager?
It used to be a requirement. Now I don't think it is anymore.
But do you wear your black apron all the time?
Yeah, I probably wear my black apron because I like study so hard. And I remember my presentation, I had my manager at the time asked me the whole entire book. So when I had I passed the 13 baristas that I had, they were so lucky they didn't get asked, like if they were lucky enough if they didn't get asked the question.
Huh. So are you the only coffee master on site at your store?
No, we have I feel like we have majority of our staff now, maybe it's like 14 other baristas that are coffee masters as well.
Wow. Do you feel personally responsible about that?
Well, most of them did train with me, and then some of them, like at the location I am, my sister's there, and she got hers by herself. So some of them, they did the work by themselves. So
I just became aware of this coffee master idea maybe a couple weeks ago, and now I'm looking at aprons, and I haven't seen one yet, like out in the world. I haven't seen a black apron yet.
Oh,
it must be pretty rare.
I think it's pretty rare. It's like it's kind of like what they say, like you do get paid for it, but a lot of the like putting your presentation together, it's kind of like you have to do the work for it.
Well, congratulations. That sounds like a really big accomplishment. And it sounds like you've been an inspiration to everybody at your store.
Well, that's how she is. Like that's how she was at Spikes also. And that was one thing I wanted to say about you, because I worked with you for 2 years, and I had already been in coffee for like 20 years. But I learned so much from you and working with you, and just watching how you work and your attention to detail, and just sort of like, you always seem to be able to figure out like a better way to do things that you didn't really like would go out and say, people, you should do it this way, but you really like set a good example. And I feel like a lot of the things that you did at Spikes like still exist today, like 2 years later after you've left. I feel like you really left a good mark on the shop. And so I know they're really lucky to have you where you are now.
Thank you.
I think what I wanted to ask, because like you're one person that I worked with that I really feel like I learned a lot from. And, you know, we all learn watching each other. Is there anybody like in your current workplace that you really feel like you've learned a lot from, just watching by example?
Honestly, I think if anybody I would choose, like, honestly, I'm really lucky to have the opportunity to work with my sister because I feel like we're both so similar in the same, but I've learned so much from the way she does things, that she's just so like, her attention to detail. I was like, dude, if people think I pay attention to detail, like my sister is so detailed, but I love it because I'm like, oh, like there's things that I'm like, yo, you can clean that, and she's like over there cleaning, taking filters out, and I'm like, I never knew that. I was like, and I've been in now like 5 years in the industry, and I'm like amazed when I learn something new.
So this is your older sister, and you work with her also?
Yes.
Oh wow! And you guys work at the same store?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's really cool. And so has she been in coffee for longer than you have, or did she come in after you?
No. Coincidentally, people always say they were like twins. So it's kind of funny that like when I got hired for Safeway at Starbucks, I got hired maybe like about a month before she got hired at a different location for a licensed Safeway as well. So it's kind of really weird. So we both are now having, I think in about the summer, we'll both turn 6 years in the coffee industry.
Wow. And so like that, when I watched you and I watched how efficiently you worked, like it was literally baffling. Like I haven't seen many people that kind of came in and were able to do that so well. Because it's a lot of work, you know, like keeping things clean and like then innovating how you do things. Were you just born with that, or did you like was your mom like or whoever you grew up with like really good at organizing the house, and you learned, you know, from watching them?
Honestly, my mom, I feel, would be the best person that would be like, she's so organized. Like she's like to like a different level than I am. I'm like, I'm now getting to the point, like, because now I'm turning 24 this year, and it's funny because like as I grow older, like I pick up more of like the organization, and I'm like, now I get why like things that I would be like, no, it's clean. Like now I'm like, no, it's not clean. I gotta organize it this way to make it look perfectly like her. But even when I do that, I'm like, it's never gonna look like the way my mom does it.
Wow. And then coming from like an independent shop, I know that, you know, like one of the big differences between like working in a corporate or working independent is that independent shops often don't have such standardized procedures for things. So it really helps when someone comes through and is really able to come up with good systems that work for everybody and kind of like make the workflow a lot smoother, because independent shops can be a little roughshod sometimes. The other thing I wanted to know is like, what have you seen as like a big difference between working in the corporate environment and working in an independent shop?
Well, in the corporate environment, it's kind of more, I would say like my location now, we do things the standard, but a lot of the things we fluctuate. But I would say that like my last experience when I had my old store, it was more like to a T to corporate, and it was a little bit more like I honestly did not enjoy the environment because even though I love the company, sometimes I'm kind of like, well, there's the thing is like what I really love is like connecting with customers, and that's where I've always like kind of like. So it's kind of like when we have to do things fast paced, and then we implement things like mobile order, and then we now do Uber Eats. Is kind of like, well, when do we really have time to connect with the customers? That's why when I was at Spikes, that was something that I loved, because I felt like I generally like had like a connection with everybody, like that's the way the environment feels there. And so now at this store, I'm lucky that I've been there 2 years, and now that I go in and I open the store all the time, like everybody goes and they're like, hi, Angela. And like, I don't really pay attention to how many people really know me. And so like one morning they're just like, I'm like saying hi to everybody. And then I'm like grabbing their coffees. And then I'm like having every single conversation with everybody. I'm like, wow. I was like, I really know who I am.
Yeah. So you feel like it took a little bit longer, but now you're kind of getting that more of a independent coffee shop type vibe in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is something that you would say, because obviously you chose to go from independent and back into the corporate world. What is something about that is I guess that you would say that is good for you from that?
Honestly, I mean, I like the role that I'm in now. I'm pretty happy. I think the benefits that I have now is just that obviously the learning opportunities, and then a little bit more of this, like the things that I get offered.
Yeah, like benefits, like you get like a package. Yeah. That's kind of hard to come by in the independent coffee world, as you know. Like sometimes independent coffee shops can't really afford to do like health insurance or paid vacation or that kind of thing, childcare. It's a little bit. It's a decision. I always assumed that was what was going on with you. Is partially like you had such talents and you need to be able to like kind of grow. And there's not really a ladder to do that in an independent shop. Although it does have, the things that you said, like other perks that are really great. Sometimes it's, you might need the things that you could get out of Starbucks more than you would out of an independent shop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're eligible for health insurance when you work for Starbucks. What are the parameters for that? How many hours do you have to work to be eligible?
I think I believe that the minimum is just half-time. So part-time, I think it's anything above 15 hours, I believe.
And do you have to pay premiums for your health insurance, or is it just covered?
It's taken out of your paycheck. So I'm pretty sure it's like kind of like depending on what coverage you want.
Okay. Have you ever used your health insurance?
I use my health insurance all the time.
And how do you find it? Like, I mean, what company is it through?
Because I have Christopher, who's my 4-year-old son, I'm lucky enough to get coverage. So I get, I'm eligible for Medi-Cal, but if I want to upgrade it to go like for dental care and everything, Starbucks can cover me for that. And then I believe through that is Blue Shield that's offered as an insurance.
Okay, so that's a pretty big company.
So one thing to ask you about yet the way we've described you now, it would sound like you're just like work. But the one thing that people would be really interested to know about you is that you really have a creative side. And like at Spikes, we had this like blackboard door that was like behind the counter, and she would do these amazing, like really detailed chalk drawings on them. She did like signs. She made little signs for all the pastries and all that kind of stuff. But there was one that especially that I always remember, and it was Stranger Things, and it was the upside down world that she drew on chalk on the door. So I was wondering, like, where you are now. How have you worked your like creative life into your work? Where you are now?
Well, honestly, now I just because I'm trying to go to the next step to be a store manager. I'm fortunate enough that my manager allows me to pick up a lot of things at the store. And one of the things that I really have focused on is like all the displays. So like every single time there's a seasonal, like the last one, I believe the biggest one was Christmas time. And then I kind of did like an overnight at the store. It was like three hours. And I believe like it was me and my sister who came in, and we stayed maybe like an hour or two after hours. And I was like putting things in particular details, and I'm like, no, it has to be perfect. And I like and then not only do I like get to put the cups out and put all this like the display and the boards and the mini boards, I also like integrated like all the like decorating the store. So I take advantage of like being like, oh, let's put a little tree here and like put things on top, like make the pastry cake like a little designs on the corners of them. And it's
so you got to do like, because everybody, you know, people probably don't even realize this. Like they might think that like the way that Starbucks is decorated is like dictated from corporate, and they just like send you a box with a package and say, here, put this out. But you actually had some creative control over what the inside of your store looked like, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they do send us like a box and then to tell us this is what the siren eye and everything should look like. But I do get to have like some creative elements that are like, if we have like extra sugar cookies, like we'll put them in little like shallow bags, and then we'll put them out and we'll make them look cute. Or I'll put like extra decorations around the stores, just around like Halloween and like Christmas. And then we also have like things in the back room that I'll have like some control on, being like, this is so the partners can see, or for like when we nominate for a sample, like we do like this whole partner of the quarter to like nominate somebody that we think is outstanding performance, and then we get to put them in like what we have a community board chalkboard, and I get to like pay and kind of like chalk marker it, and then be like do whatever I want to do on that board. So
do you still do like a lot of drawing, just sort of like on your own out away from work, that kind of thing?
I kind of stopped doing a lot of art, but it's something I'm always looking to do. But it's
I'm sure
like,
it'll come back to you.
Hectic. Yeah, it's like my schedule from school and then being a mom and then being at work 20 hours. I'm just like, sometimes I don't have time to do all the art, but I do.
Yeah, you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
But if you ever saw like her, we everybody always loved like the big doors that she did at Spikes. They were pretty amazing. There was one that was like, what was it, like the Death Star?
Yeah, it was like
time.
with the I want to say it was Van Gogh. And then it was like the little Death Star, and then like Darth Vader just looking over the town.
That was amazing. They were always kind of like sci-fi inspired.
Yes.
Very cool. So you were talking about your 4-year-old son. Does he get curious about like what you do? Does he ask you a lot of questions like about work or?
No, he just thinks that when I'm going to work, I'm like getting to play around, because he just started preschool, and so he just plays around all day. So he just feels like when I'm going to work, he's like, "Can I go to work too?" And I'm like, "But it's a job." I was like, "When you go older, you're not gonna want to go to work." Well, now.
Does he like does he like the way coffee smells, or is he like yuck?
No, he's still like yuck, and then but then he'll drink like all the sweet stuff, and I'm just like, I guess.
Yeah, he would probably drink like a white mocha or something like that.
Yeah,
or maybe just a cup of whipped cream.
Yeah, just a cup of whipped cream or like hot chocolate.
Yeah. Well, Jodie, do you have any other questions for Angela at all?
Yeah. Do you still have a dream of having your own coffee shop?
Someday, yeah. It was just funny because recently I've been really in contact with my older sister and my sister, and we've been like talking like every day about how we really want to open like maybe like a family business, and we can like sell my mom's recipes. And like I was like, oh, if you do it, I was like, we should do like a little coffee area. And I was like, and then I can have my dream of a coffee shop, and we can do all these things. So someday I would love to have my own business.
Yeah. So you haven't given up on it yet.
No, I haven't completely, but I know that I'm also just branching out and continuing my studies just in case that's if I change my mind along the road.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really curious, what is that behind you? The Fox Plaza, and it has like, it looks. She just for people who are just listening, she has this board behind her, and it looks like some kind of organizational something or other. It says Fox Plaza at the top, which is like a big building downtown.
Fox Plaza is the building that my Starbucks is in. So we have a whole board that recognizes. So it's kind of like little envelopes, and so my sister brought it home, and we decided to work on it here because we had it up, and then originally we had pictures on it, but our staff is so immature that they decided to paint on each other because they thought it would be funny and be like, and so we decided to take down the pictures because we're like, we're not wasting money on putting more pictures when you guys are just going to draw on top of each other. And we decided just to put names. But the whole point of the board is just to put like little appreciation cards. So like if somebody's like having like a rough day, or we just really want to show our thankfulness and like for our team that day, and we just get to be like, thank you for being so awesome, and putting little cards in there for them to feel like recognized and appreciated.
Do people do a good job of keeping that positive?
Yeah, I want to say it. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know with our staff sometimes. I'm like, so you don't ever play around too much.
You don't ever put like like a lump of coal or like a nasty note there. I could see something like that devolving, unless your staff is super functional.
Yeah, I know. They're just like, they're all around my age, so I know that they just want to have fun and laugh and go. So I know that they'll just tease each other every day. Yeah.
So have you hired people at your Starbucks yet?
For our location, I've sat in a couple of like an interview with my manager, but other than that, like I don't do the hiring.
But that's what you're going to grow into in this management role. When you do start hiring people, does Starbucks train you to do interviewing? Do they coach you on how to be a mentor? Or do they just kind of give you the job and let you learn as you go?
They do. So the process that I know right now is that the classes that I had they were like high performance classes for like people who wanted to move up. And then they kind of go over with you a little bit of like the qualities you should look on somebody, the things you should look for when you're hiring somebody. And then they really recommend you to sit in with your manager and look at like how they kind of interview. And so you can kind of get you can kind of see what you will be doing as you grow into that role. And then once you kind of have your interview, you get trained as an assistant store manager. So what that kind of looks is kind of like I believe it's like 9 months to a year program where you basically just learn how to do the schedules, you learn how to do payroll, you take of like the inventory, you look at your sales, like how much your store is making, the waste, and then a part of it is kind of training how to hire people who come in.
I'll have to say, when you're doing all that studying, like you, after having worked with you in the past, like you almost seem overqualified. Does a lot of the stuff that you're studying seem like kind of like common sense now, or?
Well, yeah, a little bit. So I kind of took my classes for the IPLD because my manager just wanted me, like my district manager, wanted me to go ahead and just to be a part of them. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And And then after that, I took a little bit of a break before I wanted my interview. So at the moment right now, my next step is to basically would be to schedule an interview to be an assistant store manager. And I still have to go through all the training to then wait to get a store for me to go and then manage that store. But it is some of the things that I'm doing now, it's just a shift supervisor. I'm kind of like, I feel like at this point I'm a little bit overqualified, to be honest. But then I know that a lot of it's going to help me when I'm actually there. So then at first I used to be really nervous about like doing my interview. And then now, as I've been there a little bit longer, I'm kind of seeing like, oh, well, like, I think if I'm doing it now, then later on I'm going to be able to do it. So I feel like I'll do well on my interview coming up.
Is that what part of like management do you think, like, when you grow into it, what do you think will be like the most challenging part for you to learn?
Honestly, I think the only challenging part of it, I feel like, because right now as a shift, like, I feel that a lot of my staff respects me and leads me. The only thing that I feel the challenging part would be when I actually get my own store and then I have to come in and be like, hello, you guys, like, I'm here and I'm going to be your manager now. But I think I feel like I'll do well.
I'm sure you will.
We normally start our show by asking our guests what your favorite coffee is or what kind of coffee you had this morning. And I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over that today.
That's okay.
So can we rewind and ask you what you like to drink personally?
So I feel like over the years, I kind of just developed my own kind of coffee cup that I want to drink. But right now, I'm really a fan of blonde espresso because it's so smooth. It kind of, it's really light in your drink. And then, so I usually drink about 2 shots of blonde espresso with some soy milk and then probably some caramel syrup in there. And it's kind of like a basic iced caramel soy latte.
Do you make like a pretty small one?
Yeah, I make a really small one because that's
the
way I like it really strong, like kind of like a cortado, kind of.
Yeah, I make that sometimes, like especially on a hot day. There'll be like 2 shots of espresso. I actually use half and half instead of soy milk, but then I do like 1 little pump of hazelnut, and it's like I call it short and sweet.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
But it sounds pretty much like just about the same thing.
Yeah.
And for your blonde espresso, what is that? Is blonde, does blonde refer to like a different roast level, like whether it's light, medium, or dark?
It's kind of like if blonde is kind of like light roast, so it's just basically like, so you have your light, like your flavors are going to be light, but your caffeine level is going to be a little bit more
right. Higher. And do you
higher in caffeine?
They say it's more caffeine, but honestly, I'm gonna say like it's probably like a 1 or 2 of a difference than what it is to the other ones. It's pretty similar.
Okay.
And do you does Starbucks consistent in the beans that they use for their blonde espresso, or does that change depending on the?
They're consistent. Like they came before. I believe it was like when they first did blonde espresso. I feel like it was different, but then now it's just blonde espresso with consistency, like
so it's kind of like a house blend.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that. I'm gonna have to try that.
So what, besides Starbucks, what would you say are your 3 favorite coffee shops in the world?
In the world. Honestly, in the city, I would say I would probably do like 4 Barrel, Blue Bottle, and I would say Spikes because I really like all their coffees. I used to always bring a pound home. I miss the coffee there.
Well, come see us sometime.
I will.
We'll hook you up.
Do you live pretty far from Spikes now?
No, actually, I live. So it's located on 19th de Castro, and I live like on 18th, so I'm not that far from it. I just don't go that way that often.
Mm-hmm.
And do you go to 4 Barrel more often or Blue Bottle?
I would say 4 Barrel. This is on my way.
And they just had like a big thing where they like changed their name for a minute, right? And then changed it back or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, it's the same coffee today.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much the same. Well, Angela, thank you so much for coming and taking time to come talk to us. It's really been great catching up with you and learning about what you're doing now and exploring like a different side of coffee than we have on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to catch up.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, as we end this episode, we want to again thank Angela for being with us today and thank all you listeners for joining us. We want to hear from you guys. So if you know a barista or a coffee industry expert that needs to be featured on our show, write to us and tell us. Whatever your thoughts are, send us your big ideas and questions to info@baristaunfiltered.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We still need subscribers on YouTube to get that personalized URL. So get out there and subscribe, even if it's just a minute. And if you want to write a thoughtful review on Apple's iTunes podcast app, that helps us get noticed by the masses. So thanks for all of y'all who've done that. We want to say thanks to our podcast patrons that are supporting us through Patreon. If you want to donate to our podcast, we appreciate any amount and any schedule that works for your budget. You can find our Patreon account at patreon.com/baristaunfiltered. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
Y'all be good and stay caffeinated, friends. Bye.
Bye-bye.